My name is Susan Lant. I became a quilter through kind of a long journey. I started out sewing at the age of about 9 in 4-H. My mother taught me very well how to sew. I started it when I was at Ball State. I lived in Knott's Hall, and I got a sewing machine for a graduation gift. So when I got here, I needed a bathrobe, so I made myself one. And some of the other gals on my floor liked it, so they started ordering them. So that's how I had my first little sewing business, was out of Knott's Hall, 4th floor. We all had bathrobes that looked alike. I think I got my first long arm quilter in 2007, and it was the lowest entry level you could get, and so you didn't get many bells and whistles with that. And so I basically learned sewing machine repair, because every time I'd go to use it, I'd have to retime it and tear it apart. And so I finally upgraded about 4 years ago to the one I've got now, and I can get a lot more done. But I really like the idea of t-shirt quilting because you're helping people. They've got a whole dresser full of these t-shirts that they love. They don't know what to do with them. They don't want to get rid of them. And you can cut the fronts off of the t-shirts, make squares. It empties their drawers. They can wear all their t-shirts at once and keeps them out of the landfill. And then the leftovers I make other quilts out of. My brother also encouraged me in this because he happened to tell me off the cuff one time that he had cut out his t-shirts into squares and he didn't know anybody that could quilt them. And I was like, I could do it. So I got one of his done, and I've got another one. But when I finally got the first one done, I took it to him, and he's got 5 children. And I handed it to him. I said, here's your t-shirt quilt. And when he opened it up, the kids all just flocked over to it, and he immediately started telling the stories. Oh, this is when we rode bikes to San Diego, and this is when we did the cross country from San Francisco to the East Coast, and here's where we went to China. And they were just mesmerized by him telling the stories of the quilt. And I thought, oh, this is such a cool thing that you need the narrative that goes with the t-shirt to tell people that are looking at it. So I had photographed his quilt and sent him the images and said, okay, write the narrative now. And so I can print a book then. I've got the equipment here to make photo books. So then I can give each one of his kids the book that goes with the t-shirt and the quilt, and then he gets to keep the quilt. So I thought that that's a cool thing for when you've got like maybe a grandparent that's passed away and there's enough fabric maybe to make one memorial quilt, but then you can photograph it, and then anybody that wants to remember her and maybe doesn't want the quilt can have a little book. I moved to this space this year in May because obviously I'd outgrown my home. So for about 15 years, it's been Studio Pro 31, and I picked that name because I didn't want something with my name in it. And I try to read a proverb every day, and the 31st proverb, I was reading it one day and it was like, this is it, because the last half of that chapter talks about this woman that's this real industrial lady. She stays up late at night, she gets up early in the morning, she sews, she makes sure her domestic help has food and clothing, and she sells things in the marketplace, and her husband is political, he's out there, by her keeping track of the household, it frees him up to do whatever he wants to do. And she wears purple and she sells garments. And so I thought, oh, well, that's what this should be based on, that you're industrious and you, it also told that she was a good businesswoman. It said she saw a field and she bought it, so it's kind of like she's kind of not dependent on her husband, but yet, they're still a family unit and they each do their own thing. And I just kind of liked that verse, or that whole chapter. So I thought that's what I'm going to base this studio on. With the space, then, I've also started offering classes for people that want to learn to sew or learn to quilt or make their own t-shirt quilts. You can talk and you can have social sewing. You have a social internet, but here you can be social and actually complete a project. My husband was an avid motorcycle rider, and he always told me that, if I die from a motorcycle accident, if I die on the road on this bike, I've died a happy man. So he did pass away in December of 13, but it wasn't from a bike wreck. It was from his multiple medical conditions. And so I wanted to dedicate a part of this business to him because he watched me build it, and it was my intention that when I got through school that I would have a shop somewhere where he could come and interact with people because he liked it. He liked to talk to people, and then, you know, I could quilt. Since he's passed away, I thought these quilts that I make out of the scraps that I can give away, I've just gotten an emblem, a logo designed and embroidered that says, it's the front of a motorcycle, and it says, enjoy your ride. And so that was his kind of his mantra, you know, whenever he'd go off on his bike, if he went by himself, I'd say, enjoy your ride. And he always said, you know, if it's his last one, that's fine. So that kind of brings back the philanthropic part of quilting too. Quilters are always givers.